I gotta go to bed chat, still sub though easy.
See the sky on fire with you. We move, we fall, we hope to find it all. We move, we fall down. I'm waiting for the sun to go down for you. 'Cause we move, we fall, we hope to find it all. We move, we fall down. fall, we hope to find it all. We move, we fall down. 'Cause we move, we fall, we hope to find it all. We move, we fall down.
And hide you in my treasure chest. I don't know what to do with your kiss on my neck. I don't know what feels true, but this feels right, so stay. And hide you in my treasure chest. I don't know what to do with your kiss on my neck. I don't know what feels true, but this feels right, so stay inside. But this feels right, so stay inside.
Okay, you guys. Hello, everybody. Sorry. Don't riot. Please. Please, everybody calm down. Okay, I'm just doing a thing. I am doing a thing. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I have to make a. I gotta make a social post for the sponsor that I'm doing. Okay. All right. TB Wise, thank you for the bits. Carlos, thank you for the 31 months. Deanie, thank you for the bits. Derp, thank you for the 18 months. Ghost, thank you for the 30 months. I'll just turn my camera on so at least you guys can see me. Okay. Live tonight on Twitch.tv, Carolyn Crown with Will Neff playing hashtag Mega Break download. Okay. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, almost done, I promise. Okay, tonight with Will Neff. At the Will Neff playing hashtag Mega Break. Okay, live tonight. Live at 8 PST on twitch.tv/Caroline Klon at the Will Not Playing. Hashtag Mega Break. Download Mega. Hashtag ad. I'm losing my mind. I look forward to your views on the verdict. Jesus. Jeez, oh, Pete's. Okay, I think that's good. All right. Okay. I'm good. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, I think. My Thai Vegas, thank you for the 7 months. Is it wrong to report someone to ICE if the person R-worded you in high school and was let off the hook by the criminal justice system? I'm really struggling because the perp is not open to restorative justice. I'm out of options. I think ICE should be abolished, but I'm in so much pain you have no idea. That's very complicated. Knee capitals. I'm very sorry for what happened to you. Yeah, that's morally very complicated because on the one hand, ICE is a bad agency that needs to be abolished and is causing a lot of harm to people right now and weaponizing ICE to get some sort of vengeance, justice because this person, because you were failed by the criminal justice system. That is, I honestly, I don't feel comfortable telling you what to do in this case. I would just say that I don't think that you using ICE, especially being a person who is fundamentally opposed to ICE, is the only course for you. So yeah, I would talk to I would talk to a lawyer. I would seek legal advice. I'm just not comfortable handling this one for you. I'm sorry. You'd potentially put other people at risk involving ICE. Yeah, because it's okay. Anyway. Wow, what a way to start off the stream. Anyway, that's a really complicated thing you got going on there. I honestly just wanted someone to remind me why ICE is not the answer here, so thank you for responding. You're welcome. Okay, so anyway, today, y'all, we're gonna cover a couple things. I'm X Grand. What? We're gonna cover a couple things. And then at 8 o'clock, I am doing a sponsored stream with Will Neff. We are playing Mecha Break tonight, which is a third-person shooter game. So maybe I can take out some of the emotions I have been feeling today on shooting things in a video game. But anyway, I want you to know that you're my goat. You guys, it is very rare that I respond to people in Twitter comments, so you just need to know like how angry I was today. I not only did a rare like responding to somebody in Twitter comments, I responded this way. Duke Ranger Mac, thank you for the 22 months. If insert the insert the if I was your mother. Annalyn McCords, dear chatter, if I was your mother, I would have aborted your ass because you are a waste of space in this world. Not the exclamation point. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the exclamation point. Dear chatter, if I was your mother, I would have aborted you without thinking twice about it. Oh, I thought the Discord was memeing, but it's real. No, it is real. It is. I got to a point where today I was sitting there and I was just getting comment after comment from liberals and from some leftists as well. And I could, it was like I was a cartoon character where my face was just getting redder and redder and steam was coming out of every orifice in my body. And I was like, you know, I threw my phone across the room. I was like, I have to take a break. I need to step back. I heard you got 3rd place in the streamer competition. I have no idea what that is. Free Diddy. Listen, you fucking idiot. He's pretty much free, so you know who's not gonna be free in this chat? You. Goodbye. I have no fucking patience today. You know what? Today is one of those days where I'm like, bring the asteroid. It's time. It's time for the asteroid. That's it, that's all. Imagine simping for a person where, like, their defense was he's a domestic abuser. Like, that was part of the defense because of the video. There is no, like, debate. I mean, there's no debate over him being a sexual abuser as well. But as far as the trial went, there was admittance of him being a domestic abuser. So that's who you're calling upon to free. And I guess you clearly don't know anything about anything, but he was acquitted of the most serious charges. So there you go. The verdict was triggering AF. The survivor's exhibition of the fawn response was used again. Yes. I don't know if you saw, but his bail was denied. I did see that. At the very least, the judge looked at him and went, "You are a danger to society. You have caused harm, and there are a lot of people who testified in this trial, and Diddy has exhibited in the past that he uses his power and uses violent means to go after people who threaten him." So at the very least, he was denied his bond. Are you starting with the trial tonight? Yeah, I am, because I only have till 8, so I wanted to make sure that I covered it. I think the prosecutors really fucked up and traumatized the victim for basically no reason now that he's been acquitted. I think the prosecution bears large responsibility in what happened here, but I also think, unfortunately, this is continuously an issue when you have a trial that involves like abuse dynamics and power imbalances and coercion and like sexual violence that a jury made of regular people just simply do not understand these things that are so important to understand in a trial like this. And I am at a point where I genuinely believe that we just have to have a jury of actual experts when it involves a case of sexual violence, of sexual abuse. Because unfortunately, culturally, our perception of abuse, the belief that if someone stays in a relationship, that they weren't being abused, that they weren't being coerced because they could have left, because look at the way that they acted, because, well, they would have done these things if they really wanted to, they would have left if they really wanted to, if it was really that bad. Hey, you missed a spot on your hair. I am so done today. I'm banning everybody. Goodbye. I have no fucking patience today. I do not crash out on Twitter, and I was crashing out on Twitter today. That is how over it I am. I am so done. I need peace. I am sweating. Oh my God, I have no patience today. I have nothing. I will yeet anybody. I do not give a fuck if you are how long have I been streaming? 30-month subscriber. I don't care. You will be gone. And I will relish banning you. Please. I will abort you from this stream, and I will do so gladly. Okay. Ah! I have more gray hairs because of stupid fucks, okay? Every single stupid piece of shit that I have to deal with, I get another gray hair on my head. Look at how many I have. Anyway, I just want to say to everyone who's been a victim of sexual violence, today is a very triggering day. Let me just explain something too to everyone who's like, oh, well, sorry, but there's more important news going on. Do you not understand how sexual violence is endemic in this society? Sexual violence is so normalized. We have a rapist in the White House. We had a sex pest being held up by the Democratic Party running for mayor of New York City. Okay, it is not something that is separate from the rest of the news that's going on. We have sexual violence against women used as a cudgel when we want to bomb the shit out of a place in the Middle East, okay? And it is so frustrating to me, and this is also why I've been crashing out, because I am so tired.
Hi, Carolyn. Hi, chat.
I am so tired of cases of sexual abuse that involve celebrities that are very high profile being treated as entertainment, being dismissed by liberals and people on the left as like not important, as like slop. When the effects of this are so serious, when not only the victims who were involved in this case have to reopen their wounds, have to be re-traumatized because the burden falls on victims in this world to get any justice, and so often they don't, but the effects that this has on everyday people who watch cases like this and see, well, I guess there is no hope for me, because there was, when you have video evidence of abuse on tape, and that is still not enough to convince a jury of your peers that this was such an abusive relationship and there was so much coercion happening. It's just maddening. It's so maddening to me, and I'm so tired. I am tired of having to battle misogynistic, disgusting people on the right, and then also people, liberals and leftists who are like calling me MAGA because I am so upset that we don't care about victims. What logic is that? Are you insane? Are you stupid? And like, what don't you understand that people also form their politics through pop culture? Why is it that leftists can understand the manosphere and how all these young men are radicalized to the right because of like guys who work out and talk about cultural things that are interesting and important to people, and then they are radicalized towards right-wing politics, but you don't understand when this has to do with pop culture and with news that involves celebrities and how this radicalizes women too. Like, this is what I've been trying to talk about for years now. Why is it that we can't make the connection here that people form their political beliefs through their cultural mindset, through what they are consuming in pop culture? It is so infuriating. It is so infuriating. And I get dismissed over and over again as just as a celebrity gossip girly. This is not celebrity gossip. Oh my God. How do you not understand that this is politics? How do you not understand that sexual violence is political and it's so normalized in our society? And like the effects of Heard versus Depp, like we're still seeing that. We are seeing that in our legal system. We are seeing how public opinion, the public sentiments towards abuse, towards victims of abuse is carrying through to cases like Sean Combs. And like how we view our politics and like who we put into office. People treat these cases with celebrities as if they're just for entertainment. They don't take it seriously because famous people are involved. And it's like, why are you yelling at me? Why aren't you yelling at the fucking Democrats and the liberal media who have spent weeks now crying about Zohran Mamdani and how, this Muslim socialist in New York City, crying about an artist at Glastonbury when they should have been opposing this fucking bill. When they should have been out there effectively communicating to the American public about how disastrous the reconciliation bill is. Why are you coming for the people who care about the outcome of the Diddy trial because it's taking away space, media space, and people's attention from the big, beautiful bill? You're clowns, all of you.
Thank you for speaking truth to power.
Oh. I'm just so mad. I'm so mad. And how like the anti-Me Too culture warriors, who there's so many of the pop culture like reactionary warriors, okay, people on the right who understand full well that they can affect the mindset of the masses through pop culture, and how they'll use this again to paint women as liars, to smear victims, to keep dismantling the little progress that we have had. I had a conversation with a coworker today about the Diddy case. I think I got through to him. You gave me the language to have that conversation. And even after that one person, it was fatiguing. I can't imagine how exhausting it must feel. Well, that makes me feel better that, at least, at least you were able to change one person's mind on this by just simply having a conversation with them. Mikey, thank you. Thank you for the 2 months. Jade, thank you for the Prime. Zeus, thank you for the 2 months. Arya, thank you for the 30 months. Sejong, thank you for the 18 months. We are in the post-Me Too era, straight up. And Anyway, yeah, it's just exhausting. 100% asteroid time. I know, that's what I was saying earlier. So now there was, Sean Combs was found guilty, but for the lesser charge. And this is what I was kind of talking about yesterday, where I said, I fear that the jury is going to find him guilty for the charge of transportation to engage in prostitution, because we, like anything to do with sex work. Oh yeah, let's make sure that we criminalize that. But sex trafficking, forcing people to, coercing them into sex that they do not want to participate in, those crimes, no. No. Oh my God. I just need people to stop. The reason that I'm calling on leftists is because I'm a leftist, and we are supposed to espouse politics that means we care about sexual violence in our world. And so I need leftists to stop dismissing this kind of news, and when something involves a celebrity, you need to understand that the repercussions extend beyond the celebrity world, because these are people who have, with the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, Blake has endless resources. She has privilege and power, but most women don't. Most victims of abuse do not. And every time a case involving celebrities and sexual abuse, every time that it results in no justice for said victims, that has a chilling effect on other victims of abuse coming forward, because they look and see, well, if that happened to this person who has, many more resources and privileges than I do, then there's just no hope for me. And you are just reminded that we live in a society that does not care about victims, that does not have a nuanced understanding of abuse. And it just makes you go, well, I guess this isn't going to change. And I don't want to have to go through the reopening of my trauma in order to try and get any justice. So I will just stay silent about it. Okay. This is why the Heard Depp case was such a big deal. Every misogynist incel uses that case. As you see, can't trust what women say. They're lying, even though anyone with a brain could see that they're both guilty, regardless. He was abused. And that case, the court of public opinion played a massive role in it. There is no denying that all of the content creators, the way that this was being memeified on the internet, the way that just everyday people were, that the facts were being lost because of the way that this was just treated as entertainment, that had serious consequences. that we continue to see. All the jokes about it. Yeah, I mean, still the jokes about it. I mean, the fucking jokes already, like throughout the Sean Combs trial, all the jokes about baby oil, freak offs, like it's not taken seriously. Yeah, the people being more upset about Diddy having gay sex because of homophobia. Here's Evan Rachel Wood. Here's what she wrote on Instagram. Hold on a sec. Sorry. I have to put on the fucking politics and politics and sensitive social issues. Gotta put the fucking label on. There is no consent in a domestic violence relationship, period. Once the threat of violence is there, you comply. You do not consent. It is self-preservation and survival. It is not freely or willingly given. It is forced and coerced out of you. We clearly have a long way to go in our understanding of this. Yeah, so I blame the prosecution, but I also blame the fact that societally we have such a long way to go in understanding abuse. And so a jury made up of regular people are going to struggle with understanding how someone like Cassie could have stayed in a relationship for as long as she did if she was being forced into all these horrible things. Despite there being a fucking video, there was proof. There was proof of Diddy abusing her to show this is what happens when she says no. But that wasn't enough. And the jury was made up mostly of men. Mostly of men. It's not to say that women do not have issues with this as well. Do you think down the line we'll hear that there was some kind of jury intimidation that took place here? Because what I'm hoping, and I mean, no, I don't. People will be like, well, we know that Diddy is crazy and he's used his money and power before. I don't think that would have even been necessary in this case. Like, I don't think that this was something where the jury was like feeling as if he, feeling assured of his guilt and then changed their minds because they were all threatened by Diddy or his associates. Not to mention anyone with DV or SA is going to be dismissed from the jury. Same if they understand the psychology behind responses. Yes. Zeus Demon.
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Want to know about your take on the verdict that the jury reached?
So I think this has to be seen as a big win for the defense. When it comes to the most serious charges, Sean Combs was not found guilty. And when it comes to those lesser charges of transporting somebody for commercial purposes, for prostitution, there were convictions. And we should be clear that these are still federal criminal convictions. And this is it is still serious to be convicted of federal crimes. But in terms of the overall case and what Sean Combs was charged with, certainly this is a win for the defense. At this point, what we're looking for is seeing if bail, whether or not Sean Combs will be released essentially almost immediately, maybe today, or if he will be detained until sentencing. And then we're looking forward to see what sentencing is going to look like. The prosecution has said that they're going to ask for a very...
So he was denied bail. He will be sentenced in October, but his team and the people close to him have obviously been celebrating this as a win. I don't know. It's just like, it's very frustrating to have the judge, it's like the judge is recognizing that he should not be let out in public at this time, and yet it was also acquitted of serious charges. But it's like, okay, so we recognize that he's a dangerous person, that he has caused mass harm, and most likely will continue to, because he wasn't found guilty of the most serious charges against him. I mean, I'm sure he'll try and be on his best behavior for, as things are still fresh, but
very lengthy period of time. We don't know exactly what that is. The defense obviously wants no time whatsoever. And so we're going to look at, there will be an exchange of memorandum where the prosecution will say, this is why we think that he should be behind bars for a long time. These are all the aggravating factors. The defense will say, here are all the mitigating factors, and we actually don't think that he should be behind bars for that long.
Jessica, I have to ask you, from your experience dealing with cases in your entire career, what are the chances here that he could actually walk free and not?
Yeah? How are you? Hi. Are you streaming already? Yeah. What's up?
Got your Mickey jersey.
Aww. Thanks. Cute. I know. I think he needs to go outside. Did you have fun?
I had a great time.
Easy Ecchymosis, thank you for the 18 months. Fable Gray, thank you for the 32. Mikey, thank you for the 2 months.
Not face any time in prison, only get probation.
So, well, obviously 2 different things, meaning will he be free prior to sentencing, and then will he get 0 sentence?
Diddy's supporters were celebrating outside the courtroom today by pouring baby oil on themselves. I fucking hate it here. I fucking hate it here. And can I say too, I'm in a very cynical mindset right now, but I noticed that a lot of people didn't cover the trial, and I genuinely think it's because for content creators, there was less of an opportunity to shit on women in the way there was with Amber Heard and Blake Lively, namely because of this video where Diddy is abusing Cassie, and because of like the decades of this being an open secret, and yet like him still being acquitted on these very serious charges. Also because it wasn't live streamed. That's true. So it like, oh, not as easy to make content out of it. So like, oh, we got our jokes off about freak offs and baby oil, but otherwise, like, I guess this is not as content worthy.
Time behind bars.
We'll
I shouldn't
look
have
at
said 0
Cassie's
sentence.
attorney.
So I think it is possible. I will say it's within the judge's discretion.
It was so obvious how guilty he was, so they wouldn't cover it constantly, but now I know.
The judge will consider all of the evidence that the jury heard, and whether or not some of the evidence, which does paint Sean Combs in a troubling light, is related to the counts on which he was convicted. So I also think it is possible that we could see some minimal jail time. I do want to remind everybody that he has been in prison for a long time. There was, of course, pre-trial detention in this case. And so even if he is sentenced to a number of months, it could be that the judge concludes, basically, you've already served your time.
All right, Jessica Levinson, we appreciate your insight on this case. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're joined now by Chris Melcher, a former sex crimes defense attorney. Chris, we want to get your take on the verdict and the Sean Combs defense. It seems clearly his team very happy.
Dude, I'm just thinking, Krusty Sock, thank you for the prime. I'm just thinking too about Cassie and about Jane, and they were the two of the biggest witnesses for the prosecution, and how just the combined days of their testimony and it being a cornerstone of the prosecution's case, and how I just how it must feel for them and all of the other victims to have gone through that, to have re-traumatized themselves, and to know that he is going to be back out there. He's going to be back out there, and hopefully he will be so burdened by civil lawsuits, because there are many civil lawsuits, and maybe that will, I don't know, bury him for the rest of his life. But I don't know. I just, it is very sad.
About the verdict here.
Well, Mugo, absolutely. I mean, this was the best that he could have hoped for. Onto the RICO and sex trafficking charges, he could have been facing a life sentence. And under the charges that he was convicted of, or the jury reached a guilty verdict on, it really could just be probation. And so this was the best that he could hope for. I think that the prosecutor had probably overcharged this case with the RICO, where it's a criminal enterprise that we usually see apply.
I honestly, look, I am not a lawyer, okay? I'm not a lawyer. I do not have a legal background. But looking at this, I feel like throwing the RICO charge on top of the sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution charges probably had an effect on the jury not finding him guilty of the most serious charges, because RICO is so complicated. And also, the prosecution did not introduce a single witness to be like, yep, I was part of the criminal enterprise, and these were things that I was directed to do, to make it very clear cut. And so it overly complicated the case, and it affected the jury's view on the sex trafficking charges. So it's also why, I mean, the prosecution, I absolutely lay blame on here for mishandling things and for tacking on a very complicated legal charge that probably made it harder for the jury than to convict him of the sex trafficking charges. Because Sean Combs was the only one who was on trial. They did not they did not extend this to anyone else, right? They didn't bring charges against anyone else, and they didn't bring in any witnesses to directly testify to the racketeering charge.
Tied to the mafia. And here, this was an enterprise of one man who was doing some really depraved things, but everyone was working for him and doing his bidding. It wasn't the traditional type of RICO case. So I don't think that really made a lot of sense to some of the jurors. And now this the transportation charge, okay, sure. So he's found guilty of that, but he's also served a significant amount of time in custody already. And it would seem appropriate that he could be walking out that door today.
And we were talking to one of our correspondents, Jerika Duncan, outside the courthouse earlier, and she mentioned that even when the verdict came down, there were some people out there who were surprised by it. Your take from your experience dealing with cases like this, were you at all surprised by this verdict?
Well, this is the thing about juries, they're unpredictable. But what we heard from the notes were that there were firmly held beliefs by some jurors and an inability to reach a verdict on the RICO charge, and somehow a good night's sleep allowed them to reconcile some of these things. And what we see is
a good night's sleep, and also it being 4th of July weekend coming up. This has been months of these jurors being involved on this case. They were over it. They were done. They were done, especially knowing now that they had acquitted him of the sex trafficking charges. The people who were the holdouts, the jurors who were the holdouts yesterday when they could not come to a consensus on the racketeering, probably just went, yeah, you know what? We'll side with you guys.
Is a compromise or negotiation happening in the jury room, because they do want to reach a unanimous verdict. They don't want to have the 7 weeks of their life go for nothing and have the victim and defendant have.
Were you also expecting this outcome, or did you think we'd have better results? I mean, yesterday I said I think there's a world where the guilty verdict in this or the charge that he is found guilty of is going to be the least serious charge, which is transportation to engage in prostitution. I definitely didn't think that they would find him guilty of racketeering. And I felt like I basically was like, don't be surprised if he's not found guilty of sex trafficking either. But it just is still, it's still awful. Like, it still feels like a blow. And then on top of that, like, what really triggered me today was, this is why fuck Twitter, but what really triggered me today was just how this was being dismissed and like being treated as a distraction from the from coverage over the big beautiful bill, where it's like, man, this bill has been, what are we talking about? It's like, oh, now because in the 11th hour Democrats are talking about how the bill is bad after it passed the Senate and now it's returning to the House, when it's like, where have they been otherwise? Where has liberal media been otherwise? So now you're gonna yell at people. Let me just show. This was the tweet that fucking sent me off. Aaron Rupar, who is such a piece of shit. The interesting thing about the Diddy verdict is that House Republicans are about to vote to take away healthcare from tens of millions of Americans. Where it's like, what he's saying there is he is basically doing what he thinks is a clever segue to be like, here's the important news. Because Aaron Rupar is a liberal whose politics are Republicans bad. Yeah, that it's a frivolous thing to pay attention to this when all these, when we've got this disastrous reconciliation bill. You know who's also going to lose healthcare? Victims of sexual violence who, without adequate healthcare, makes their recovery, makes their their road to, their journeys towards healing that much harder. Yeah, it's like multiple things can be happening at once. And let me pull up Kat Tunbarge replied to him on Blue Sky. And she said, here's what she said. Hold on. The thing in the budget bill is that you can and should take both of them seriously. Powerful men getting away with violence isn't a distraction from Trump and his administration. It's the same thing powered by the same rhetoric and logic of abuse. Also, Aaron Rupar is the type of guy to like not give a fuck that the Democrats are propping up a sex pest. Like, because again, it's just Republicans bad or progressives bad. And then Kat also wrote, Ari, Diddy being acquitted on sex trafficking charges. One of the reasons that the Me Too backlash has been so effective is because the court system enables a commentary class to say the absence of a guilty verdict means that women and victims are liars. In reality, it's incredibly hard and rare to convict. And it's like, man, this was a case where they had to even admit that Diddy was a domestic abuser because of it being on video. Does this judicial outcome mean that Cassie was lying? No, of course not. There's video evidence showing she was telling the truth. But the anti-Me Too culture warriors masquerading as the press will use this to say that she and all victims are untrustworthy and not credible. And when liberals and leftists have this attitude of there's more important news going on, so like let's dismiss this, guess who moves in and takes up all the space? People on the right, people who want to dismantle the Me Too movement, who want to make it impossible for victims in this world to get any justice whatsoever. People refuse to see the intersections of so many of the topics we split between pop culture or politics. So many Americans form their political beliefs through their understanding of pop culture. Where between the Heard and Depp trial, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, Tory Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion, like all of these types of celebrity cases is having an effect on people's understanding of something like abuse and like contributing to it being normalized. Cassie, I believe you. I love you. Your strength is a beacon for every survivor. Yeah. Do you notice how it's other victims, survivors of abuse, who are coming forward and saying, like, we believe you?
Have to redo the trial, which would have been the consequence potentially of a deadlocked jury. So they
also, like all summer, there's been a constant stream of multiple terrible things happening at the same time. There's always something else going on, so that doesn't make one thing less important. Yeah, it's like how you know, when it comes to Palestine, where, you know, the feminist Zionists not seeing how women in Palestine, girls and women in Palestine, who they purport, you know, oh, you're a feminist, you care about you care about making this world equal for all, like you care about removing these systems of oppression that crush women, not supporting the Palestinian cause, when it's like this is all connected. If you are a feminist, a true feminist, then you would support Palestinian liberation. Intersectionality, this is where I start to rant, I know.
They had to agree on something, and what the compromise is, hey, let's go for the transfer.
Free Diddy is the theme of today's Twitch streams. Who is fucking doing that? Free Diddy? He was acquitted of the most serious charges. Ugh.
Transportation charge, guilty on those 2 counts, not guilty on everything else. And that does make some sense because he will be held accountable for his conduct, but not at the serious levels that the government had hoped for.
And you talked about how this is a victory for the defense. Any chance that they will come back and try to basically appeal this verdict?
Well, sure, there can always be appeals, but he had a fair trial. There were lots of opportunities to cross-examine witnesses.
Little update, 201 Republicans voted yes on the BBB, 4 voted no, 210 Democrats voted nay, 15 Republican envy, and 1 Democrat envy. Numbers are changing rapidly. Well, that's good. I mean, it's insane that this passed through the Senate, and then, you know, people finally decided to take a look at this thing and be like, oh yeah, by the way, this is gonna fuck over people in this country. I think we need 5 Republicans for it to die. Yeah, it's I thought the margin was 3. They can only have 3 Republicans defect.
witnesses. He developed that information. The judge made appropriate rulings. So I don't think that there's any likelihood of a successful appeal. Had he been convicted on the RICO charge, maybe there could be something there. But on the transportation, I mean, that seemed to be firmly established by the testimony that there were transportation of one or both of the victims and these other workers here that he retained across state lines. So that would be very difficult, I would think, to win an appeal.
Yeah. And I want to ask you,
I'm a Zoomer who enjoys listening to Sam Cedar talk about Social Security. If anyone uses BBB to say sexual assault doesn't matter, it's a fucking loser. The war against the reactionary has multiple fronts. You don't have to fight on all of them. Just make sure you know your friends are and stand with them. Solidarity for yada yada. Mike is always right. You should run for office. That's such a good point of like, look, leftist content creators, commentators, streamers, etc. We can't talk about everything. Like there's just so much news and there are specialties that we all have. Like I don't know what else to say it. Like there are certain things that individual leftist streamers will focus on because it's usually something that they're best equipped to talk about. So what I would say is for people who consume news and commentary from a variety of leftist commentators, just because one of them is not covering something or not covering something extensively, or it may not be like something that they really even should dive in on if it's not an area that they're that great on, then don't dismiss that as like not important. It's like there are things that I don't cover here, but just because I don't cover them doesn't mean that I would ever say that it's not important, or like things that I focus on because I know, because one, it's usually things that are personal to me or that I just feel I have a better grasp on. And anyway, so yeah, fighting the war against the reactionary has multiple fronts. Absolutely. And you don't want every leftist content creator to be covering the exact same news. Like, I don't understand why it's like, oh, if Hassan doesn't cover something, or if he doesn't cover something at length, then it must not be important to understand. Then like, if someone else is covering it, then, oh, well, that's a distraction from the more important news. Like, I'm so tired of that, because do you know who sees you do that? When you like hierarchize the importance of news, people who are like personally affected by the news that you dismiss, they see that.
Go back to that racketeering charge, because from the very beginning, the question was whether or not prosecutors were able to make their case there, showing the jury that he is in fact or should be guilty for that charge. Why is it so difficult?
What would you say your main strengths are? I'm a fairly new viewer. Well, I would say that my focus largely as a leftist creator is on pop culture, and I specifically cover big cases of abuse that happen in industries like Hollywood, which is that I have worked in and that I have personally experienced my fair share of abusive behavior. I am so tired of stupid fucking chatters. Read the room. God damn it. Read the fucking room. I didn't know you worked in Hollywood. Yes, I worked in Hollywood. I've also always just had an interest in pop culture and, the intersection of politics and pop culture, and how the masses, the ability to change public opinion through pop culture, but also vice versa. And working as a worker on set, I worked as an actor and a writer, and I also worked at Sony Pictures. So I worked in production, but like not as a crew member, but I worked at a studio. Yeah. So that's what I would say. I'd also say specifically, like, talking about women's issues is something I care very deeply about. You know, that's a thing that I would say that I feel pretty equipped to handle. I don't put limits on the number of things I allow myself to care about. Sorry, I thought that was part of being a good human. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's really silly. It's really silly and also harmful to be like, well, this thing is really important, so who cares about this other thing? Please don't tell me you worked on Morbius. No, I did not. Actually, that was my screenplay. Exia, thank you for the tier 1.
To get a guilty plea when it comes to racketeering?
Well, it has to make sense to the jury. These are not attorneys or judges. These are regular people who are just being instructed on the law and saying, okay, is this a criminal conspiracy? 2 or more people engaged in a criminal enterprise involving specific crimes. Well, that doesn't really fit what we saw here. This was a guy that, I mean, it's unbelievable the kind of things that he was doing. But it was really an enterprise of one. It didn't have the features of the mafia or cartel. So I think that just wasn't understandable. The prosecution did the best that they could in closing argument to explain it, but it was just a bridge too far. And the same for the defense, saying that these were somehow romantic evenings that we would all enjoy to participate.
You also do amazing tributes to artists who have passed. Your coverage of Sinead O'Connor was amazing. Thank you. I do love my tributes here on this stream. You know, I love to talk about people who had an enormous impact on culture and yeah. Anyway.
No way. That didn't make sense either.
Yeah.
So the jury had to kind of use their own common sense and apply that towards reaching a verdict.
And Chris, I know you cannot read the judge's mind when it comes to what's going to happen next, but there is that question of whether or not Sean Diddy Combs is going to be allowed to go home today. What's the possibility of that actually happening?
Well, I think that is a very real possibility, and the judge was signaling that and saying, hey, show me, prosecution, a case where somebody who's been convicted of transportation has even been in pretrial confinement for this long. And many people get out on bail and they don't have to suffer imprisonment or confinement before trial. He has no criminal history. He was acquitted of all these very serious charges that the prosecution made against him. He's going to put up a substantial bond. There's no risk of him fleeing when he's almost served the entire potential sentence already pre-trial. And the concerns about witness tampering don't exist anymore because the witnesses have already testified. So I would think that all signs, in my view, point towards him walking out that door today.
I also wanted to ask you about sentencing. How long before we officially know what
That's crazy. Okay. Well, anyway, none of this matters because he was denied.
the judge is going to decide on this?
Well, generally, they take their time on that. There's going to be pretrial interviews.
I'm sorry. Do we all remember when Diddy when he fled the first time? Like, hello? He already did that one time?
Or pretrial services interviews and
Yeah, he
looking
was
at his
just
history,
going on
the
vacation.
motivations for why he did these things.
This motherfucker
He can
famous
now
for running.
explain, there was a drug issue. Maybe there were other things going on in his life that made him engage in this conduct. So he would try and explain it as what we call mitigating factors. He would definitely advertise to the fact that he has no criminal history before. He's going to talk about things that he learned while he was in detention and why he'll lead a different path.
Here was Cassie is opposing Sean Diddy Combs' release from federal custody. Dear Judge, sub-Romanian, we write as counsel for Cassandra Ventura to respectfully request that the court deny Mr. Combs to be released pending his sentencing on his 2 convictions. Pursuant to the Bail Reform Act, detention is mandatory post-conviction on these charges, and Ms. Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to the victims who testified in this case including herself as well as to the community. We thank the court for its time and attention to this matter. Respectfully submitted, Douglas Wigdor. Like, man, Cassie just cannot be free of this. She just had a baby, and now she has to worry about the repercussions for testifying against Combs.
Path going forward, and the prosecutor is then going to want to put on these aggravating circumstances. So that may happen, let's say in a month from now. We could see a hearing on that. There's sentencing guidelines. This could go anywhere from no jail time, meaning probation, all the way to 10 years in imprisonment. The guidelines seem to be around 15 to 21 months of imprisonment, and he's already been in custody since September of last year and will get credit for that time. So he could potentially be sentenced to time served.
Okay, Chris Melcher, thank you so much for joining us today and for your insight on this case. Appreciate your time.
Okay, let's watch this with, where is Cassie's statement from Cassie?
And now I understand, Aaron, a statement has been given on behalf.
Doug, you were inside of that courtroom when this verdict was read. This has been something that you have been representing Cassie Ventura for well over a year.
Jennifer, that is not true. There are minors who have made allegations against Diddy. It's just what he was charged with at this specific trial did not involve the allegations from people who were minors who when he abused them. But there are over 120 people who have come forward about Sean Combs. Most of these are going to be in the form of civil lawsuits, because essentially the state will look at what do we think we have the most hard evidence on to bring a guilty conviction. So we're not going to minimize the abuse whatsoever. And the one major problem with somebody like Epstein and with somebody like Harvey Weinstein is that they are held up as some barometer of like how bad an abuser is. But even so, Sean Combs has decades of having committed abuse towards, allegedly minors as well. And these allegations, including that of sex trafficking. He was on trial for sex trafficking as two of the charges. And also, abuse against adults is a horrible thing. Like, there should be no minimizing of that at all. Why are they doing the genocide type comparison we were talking about last night, but for abuse? What is wrong with people? I don't know. I don't know.
Year, a lot at stake here. Yes, for Sean Combs, but for Cassie Ventura. What were you feeling when you were inside that courtroom?
Well, I think there was a lot of mixed emotions in the courtroom, generally speaking. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen convictions on the RICO charges and the sex trafficking charges, but Cassie prompted this investigation by the Southern District, and now Sean Combs stands before the court as a convicted felon of 2 federal crimes. He faces significant incarceration. Not the exact outcome that we wanted, but we are grateful to the jury for finding a guilty verdict on those 2 federal crimes.
I want to get back to what you were just talking about, but first I have to ask you, have you had the chance to speak with Cassie?
I have, yeah. So I had an opportunity to speak with her, as did the government prosecution team. She's of the same view. Back in November of 2023, Cassie had a choice. She could accept an 8-figure settlement offer and move on with her life and sign non-disclosure agreements, or she could file a civil lawsuit and hold Sean Combs responsible for what he did to her and shine a light on his
Bonds,
behavior.
thank you for the 4 months.
She showed great courage, great bravery to choose the latter of those 2 options. She turned away the money at first. Ultimately, the case settled the day after. And she went through a year-long process of preparing for this trial. I thought, and I think people who saw her testify, she was a great witness. She was graceful, She shined a light on this. Jane read the complaint. She came forward. Many other people have come forward, are going to be seeking to hold Sean Combs responsible in the civil courts. And so it's not all lost. He's now, as I said, he's never been held responsible for anything in his lifetime. He was acquitted on charges when he was in New York with a gun case, and now he is a two-time convicted felon, 2 federal charges. The government indicated after the jury verdict was read that they're
Yeah, like I'm trying to find the bright spot here, and I guess the fact that he was at least convicted of one of these charges, although it is the least serious charge and it is the one that involves prostitution. But I think it's just so demoralizing because Cassie and Jane got up there and testified. I think it was a total of 10 days. And ultimately the jurors just were not persuaded by the prosecution's case and by the testimony of Cassie and Jane that they had been coerced into these sexual activities, that they had been sexually trafficked. And they just looked at this and they bought the defense's story, which is that, remember when Mark Agnifilio called the relationship between Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura a, quote, great modern love story.
Going to be seeking consecutive terms, and they're going to be seeking lengthy prison incarceration. And so Cassie was comforted in knowing that not only has she played a role in the criminal prosecution, but that she has shined a light on this behavior by Sean Combs, and many other people have come forward, not only about him, but about other people in the entertainment world as well.
Now, I want to go back to something you said, which is when she filed that civil suit in November 2023, that this is really what started it all. And it really is in the civil sense, but also in the criminal sense. In this trial, and I was in the courtroom for most of the days, we heard both the defense and the prosecution say that this investigation, this federal investigation, began because of Cassie Ventura. How does that weigh on her to realize that Sean Combs would not have even been in a courtroom if not for her?
Well, I think it's given her some agency in life where for 10 years he told her what had to be done and she had no choice. This was her ability to say, no, I'm not going to accept this 8-figure settlement. I'm going to file this lawsuit. And that's what she did. And so she is really gratified in knowing that other people have come out since the filing of the civil lawsuit, and that you're correct. As far as I know, there was no pending investigation into Sean Combs prior to her filing the civil lawsuit. We were contacted very soon after we filed, and this investigation ensued. And the team, the prosecution team, I thought did an excellent job. Again, not the outcome, I'm sure, that counts, but they at least were able to secure 2 convictions of 2 federal felony charges.
Now, you mentioned the settlement, which, as you are saying right here, that Cassie had 2 choices, which was take the money.
Who is this man? This is Cassie's lawyer.
Sign an NDA or file a civil suit. She chose to file the civil suit. Now, she did reach a settlement within 24 hours. It was very quick. But this was after she filed the civil suit, after all of her bombshell allegations were out in the world. And yet, in this trial, the defense seized on money, not just for Cassie, but also for Jane. The defense, and this is not a direct quote, I'm summarizing, but Mark Agnifilo, in his closing, he said, Cassie Ventura is the winner here. He called her the winner. He said she's sitting somewhere in the world with $30 million. She's not naive like the prosecutors are telling you. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she's the winner. How did that make you feel and her feel to use the word winner when the jury and the world, by the way, has seen her being horrifically beaten on camera?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to your great reporting and the video that saw the light of day, obviously Cassie Ventura at that point in time and today is not the winner. she endured 10 years of
Right, but that is such a commonly held attitude of, okay, women, they just want money, right? They accuse powerful, wealthy men of abuse because they're seeking a quick payout. Like, that's a commonly held belief. Also, this thinking that somebody who is victorious in a survivor of abuse who's victorious in a civil suit, like, won, as if like the reason that they had to file that suit was not having to do with the trauma that was inflicted upon that. Like, sure, it's a legal victory in usually the only way you can obtain a legal victory when it comes to sexual assault. But to paint somebody like Cassie as the winner in this situation, like the winner versus Sean Combs, is so gross.
Abuse, where she had to engage in days-long sexual acts with UTIs. She alleged that she was raped, and so to call her a winner, even though she did get $30 million, part from, as she testified, part from Sean Combs, part from the hotel. No amount of money is going to ever undo what she had to endure and what she had to go through. So I think both she and I didn't really take well to that as her being a winner. And frankly, the fact of the matter is that when she testified, she had already been paid the $30 million. So she had no vested interest in anything other than telling the truth on that witness stand. And
and also, like, I can't state enough how often the only recourse is a civil suit. And so is that really winning? Is that really winning when the only form of justice you can get is money for pain and suffering, when there is not even an option to pursue criminal charges?
The jury did not convict on the sex trafficking charge. I mean, I think it's important for your viewers to know, in the criminal justice system, the standard is very high. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. The civil justice system is very different. It's a preponderance of
juries are a thing in America only, right? No.
Evidence, more likely than not. So it is a very high burden. The jury found that the government did not meet that burden, but that doesn't mean that what she said isn't true.
Mm-hmm. Now, his defense during their closing also called Cassie and Combs' relationship, and again, this is not a direct quote, but a great modern love story. How did she feel when she heard that? And I'm curious, has she been following all of the testimony? Because she was one of the first witnesses. She was on the stand for 4 days talking about what she says happened to her. Cassie, as we all know, is now a new mother of 3. She was on that witness stand when she was very pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant. Has she just been focused on family, or has she been following this, and how difficult has it been if she has been following?
Yeah, so, I mean, she is primarily and has been focused on her family. She did testify when she was 8 months pregnant. And she is really trying to look forward. And when I gave my statement after her testimony, I made very clear that she was looking forward. She did not want to think about the case any longer. She had given her testimony and now wanted to just concentrate on her family. And she's done that. I mean, obviously, it's almost impossible not to see some of the media about the case. And so she has seen some of that. I can tell you that some of the comments that were made in the closing argument I thought were repugnant, frankly, calling those sorts of behaviors as a modern day relationship, saying that she enjoyed sex, saying she was a gangster, things like that. I don't think, even with the jury verdict, that they would have given that any credit. And I don't think anyone who actually listened to the testimony and watched the testimony would either. And I thought that those were sort of gratuitous comments that really weren't based on it.
The jury is insane. How can they roll their eyes at testimony? So essentially, what what the defense did, and by the way, when it came time for the defense's turn, they rested after like 30 minutes. So essentially their whole argument they laid out in opening and closing and then in cross-examination. They spent a total of 30 minutes and rested their case. So from the beginning, the defense presented a very clear narrative, even though it was despicable, a very clear narrative that, hey, look, this guy, he did bad things, all right? He's a domestic abuser. You're not going to like him. And you're going to see very damning proof of him being a domestic abuser, namely the video in the hotel. However, they are charging him with sex trafficking and racketeering because he's a domestic abuser, because he's a bad guy. And you will not see the proof of those serious charges. So don't confuse him being a domestic abuser with him being a sex trafficker and part of a criminal enterprise. And that narrative they retained throughout the entire trial. And I think that was effective with the jury. I think that they went, yeah, okay. So from the beginning, they went, all right, we don't have to like Diddy. Yeah, we know that he did bad things, and that the defense is even owning up to him being an abuser. But we can't make the leap from that to believing that he coerced people like Cassie and Jane into these really horrific, sexual activities, that they were forced to participate in these things, that this amounts to sex trafficking, and they just did not believe that everything was non-consensual.
Any real fact.
Mark Green just showed up and voted yes because he's a real fucking piece of shit. He's going to be retiring, and that was one of the last votes that he'll have taken.
After Cassie filed her civil lawsuit in November 2023, since there has been roughly 70 suits that have been filed against Sean Combs. He denies all of these allegations, but the allegations coming from women, men, minors over the course of decades, egregious accusations of people being drugged at auditions, being drugged at his infamous white parties, not remembering a single thing after they were handed a drink, and then being sexually assaulted. Given that none of these suits had come out prior to Cassie filing that lawsuit, does she feel like she has made a difference and like she is shining a light on not just the abuse that she alleged of Sean Combs, but for survivors around the world?
Yeah, definitely. And that was one of her major objectives, frankly, when she rejected an 8-figure settlement, was not only to shine a light, but to give a voice to others who were suffering in silence. And she knew that there were others out there. And so to now see, as reported, numbers in the 50, 60, 70 or more allegations or lawsuits, I think that she's been vindicated in what she did. So many people would never have chosen that path. If you've got two paths, one is to take an 8-figure settlement and move on with your life versus taking the other path of rejection.
And I said this yesterday, but I straight up believe there are still so many people who have this idea that sex trafficking is like what happens in a movie. You have innocent white girls traveling abroad and they're kidnapped and are sold into, sold to like mysterious shadowy buyers at an auction. Like straight up, that's what people think. That's a very narrow understanding of sex trafficking is, a thing that happened in this movie that I saw, and then Liam Neeson went in and saved all these girls. Sex trafficking is sex trafficking is when individuals are forced to perform commercial
Love the
sex.
streams, Caroline. Tie for building this community.
It's a very romanticized version, right? It's individuals are having to perform commercial sex through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. So the coercion aspect of Cassie and Jane's relationship with Sean Combs was something that the jury just did not believe. They did not believe that neither Cassie nor Jane were coerced into these sex acts, because they saw like, oh, well, Cassie communicated with these escorts, like she was the one who paid them. Like, well, if this was going on for 10 years, like, why didn't she leave? Well, look at this statement where she, like, look at these texts between Jane and Sean Combs where Jane is like professing her love for him. So how I can't line that up with my understanding of someone being in an abusive relationship where they actually are not consenting to these things.
Rejecting it, and you might not see a penny, but you actually get to go public and shine.
They think this is the only way it could be done, similar to how there's the belief that rape and sexual assault is always brute physical violence, discounting the other ways someone can be sexually harmed. Yes, that there is still the mythology of rape being, some stranger in an alley, a person that you do not know, violently forcing themselves upon you. Like, because of the way that rape has been depicted in our media, in popular culture for so long, people don't understand that most sexual assault happens with someone that you know. Most victims of sexual assault are assaulted by a person that they know. It happens all the time in marriages, in relationships. But like, there is still, for a long time, there was, you couldn't even prosecute rape in a marriage. It's like, oh, there's no such thing as marriage rape. There's no such thing. And even though legally that has changed, it is still a cultural mindset. It is still something that even survivors of that type of domestic abuse, that they still can't understand, because they have been socialized to believe that, like, no, it's not rape. No, it's not assault if you are in a relationship with somebody, if you are married to them. Seems to be a continual theme that people only have the most sensationalized version of these things that they see in movies. Anything that doesn't conform to that expectation is disregarded. Yeah. Yeah, this is the harmful role that media has played in the, cultural perception around sexual assault. Marital rape was legal in literally every state in the U.S. until 1972, was not illegal nationwide until 1992. You are 100% on the money. Yeah, and then it's like, man, the other thing too in our society is like, we just straight up also believe that men can't assault other men, that it's like, oh no, that's just being gay, right? It's like, oh no, that's just it's just an opportunity to engage in mockery, in memes. Like, God forbid a male victim comes forward, especially one who has is of any type of status, and it's like that's not taken seriously at all. Like, Terry Crews is a prime example.
Shine a light on what happened, and maybe others come forward. She should really be applauded for what she did.
Mm-hmm. And as I said, the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
Yeah, we talked about this before when I covered that Pop Culture Detective video of like the prison rape joke, Not only that, but we live in a society that thinks rape in prison is not just okay, but something to hold over people. It just means you're pro-rape for people they dislike. Yeah. If you missed that stream where we watched that Pop Culture Detective video, I would highly recommend at least going and watching the video. Brainiac, thank you for the 19 months. Victor, thank you for the 15 months.
And I had asked them for some reporting if they had seen an influx of calls after Cassie came forward, and they had. The numbers really spiked. She spoke directly to survivors of domestic violence. When she posted on her Instagram, she thanked everyone, and she said that domestic violence is the problem. Has she been hearing from different survivors ever since she came forward?
A lot of the different organizations that support survivors have reached out to her and to us because she is really, not the...
Yeah, and I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of anger. I have a lot of anger in me, and so I am going to put that anger, that energy to good use. I'm going to try to plan a fundraising stream towards the end of the month, and raise funds for. I'm gonna pick a nonprofit that helps victims of sexual violence.
I am so glad to have found your streams.
And yeah, so just remember that when you feel really consumed by something, rather than allow it to just destroy you, put that energy to good use. Right? Direct it somewhere, because it will make you feel, it will make you feel like you're not drowning as much. So stay tuned for information on that, but I'm planning towards the end of the month. Also, a couple of the victims testifying were still coming to terms that they were raped and abused. They've only just started the process of breaking down what happened to them, so they're not going to come across the same way as someone who's had years to fully come to terms with their trauma. It's disgusting, then diminish their experience and act like they're lying. Yeah, I mean, how many times can we say that victims of abuse do not have, like, there is not one way that people process that. There's not one way that people behave after they have been assaulted, after they have, when they are abuse victims. Like, it is complicated. It is very complex. And there's a lot of people who are still coming to terms with abuse that they suffered. And, like, not being where we need to be as a society makes it that much harder. Thank you, leftist Andy. So-called seedling, thank you for the tier 1.
Official spokesperson, but she what she did was so brave and courageous, and so people see that, and they have shown fortitude in coming forward as well. I can tell you anecdotally as well, just that my law firm, which handles many of these cases, has seen a great increase in the number of cases since she came forward, because other people, women primarily, feel empowered that if Cassie can do this, I can do it as well. And so, my hat really goes out to her. I'm really proud to be her lawyer. There aren't many clients like her.
Mm-hmm. Now, when our team at CNN released that hotel surveillance footage, I had reached out to you for comment, which is a common practice in journalism, and you gave us a statement that we used in our report. But I've never been able to ask you a question, which I am curious. Had Cassie ever seen that video before our team aired it?
She hadn't, but we had described it in the complaint, and so when the video came out, it corroborated. She had heard that a video was out there. She wasn't sure exactly what had happened with it, but she had never actually seen it. But it really, when we saw it and we look back at the complaint, it really, again, it was just amazing to see how it corroborated everything that she had said in that civil complaint.
So everything in her civil complaint was from her memory. It was her experience, and she had told you that.
That's right.
But she had not seen it. What was it like for her to see it? And I recognize that as I'm asking you this, it was our network that aired it. But to see it in such a public way, and suddenly have this very private moment out there, what was that like for her?
I think it was very disturbing for her. Again, she's never, and she never will get over the treatment that she suffered. If we didn't have that video, I'm sure Sean Combs would have denied that there was any physical incident at the
Like,
hotel.
I won't speak for every single victim of abuse, but I will say, like, sexual violence leaves scars on you that are always there. And when as a victim you come forward, like, those scars reopen, and you have the burden is placed on those who come forward to achieve any type of justice, any type of societal progress, and so often it's denied. Like, the ripple effect is enormous. It really, I mean, even those of us who have, like, done therapy and have come to terms with what we endured and, like, can speak openly about it now and can fight on behalf of other victims, like, it is something that alters you. Like, it's not something that you just get past. You can heal, and you can, hopefully, ideally, it does not it doesn't become your entire life, but, like, it leaves scars that are so deep and are unfortunately scars that are hard to erase, and there will be moments when there will be moments that, like, you just unexpectedly are hit by the trauma, by, like, what you have endured, and sometimes there are experiences you have that you have now recognized were abusive, were violating, and then there are others that, like, will pop up in the middle of when you're in the shower or whatever. You see something and it triggers a memory or an experience you had, and it's amazing how, like, even having a deeper understanding of abuse, that, like, your brain also will do this thing where, like, in order to protect you, it can, like, it can hide memories and experiences, and anyway, it was such an enormous burden for the women who came forward and testified, and it's no small thing.
On that day, if she didn't have the pictures and photographs of other incidents, he would have denied those as well. And so obviously the video shows what he did. Her views and the general public views, I think, uniformly were disgusted by what was on that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think happens next with all of these civil suits? Of course, you do not represent all of them, but now that Sean Combs, he has been convicted, he's a criminal now. He was found by a jury to have committed 2 federal crimes, but as you said, not the outcome that you were necessarily hoping for. Do you believe that these civil accusers will be scared because he won't be serving life in prison, or do you believe that they will still be emboldened to pursue their claims against him?
Well, I think from a plaintiff's lawyer's perspective, they're probably happy, frankly, that he's not going to be in jail because, he'll have his assets, and they'll be able to take his deposition, they'll be able to participate in discovery. If he were in jail, sort of like Harvey Weinstein, those cases have been difficult to get any compensation for, given his situation. If he had been convicted on RICO, there may have been asset forfeiture along with that as well. So, just from a practical standpoint, not a bad thing for those civil cases. And even if he had been convicted of RICO and/or sex trafficking, that wouldn't have necessarily have helped those other plaintiffs because most likely that sort of evidence would have been excluded from those civil trials anyway. So, net, I don't think there's really, it might even be a positive, frankly, for those other civil lawsuits. I can't really comment on, the strength of those lawsuits. We only have one of them actually pending, but, I hope that the ones that are valid all succeed.
And will you be pursuing that one client's claim?
For sure, yes.
So interesting to hear that perspective. And of course, you represented victims of Harvey Weinstein as well. Now, you're also a former prosecutor. So what do you think we're looking at here for sentencing when it comes to these two convictions? Each carry a maximum term of 10 years. The prosecutors have said that they will be pursuing these 20 years to be served consecutively. What do you think is realistic?
I don't think that I'm really the person that would be as qualified to answer that question, but I know the government feels strongly about seeking whatever maximum term that they can do under not only the federal laws but also the sentencing guidelines. And in addition, that they feel that some of the other non-acquitted facts that sort of go to bolster their position that he should be sentenced to maximum or consecutive terms, that they will pursue all of those avenues to the extent that they can do so in a legal and plausible way. And so it would be hard for me to ultimately guess, but I would say this: he definitely faces a substantial prison term, and I do believe he's going to be serving years, plural. It would be very difficult for me to gauge how many years, though.
Cassie took the stand for 4 days, and she testified about what, quite frankly, are some of the most embarrassing.
So yesterday also, when I mentioned that there was a question that the jurors had sent in on Monday afternoon when they were deliberating, and it was regarding drug distribution, and they basically wanted to know how they wanted to know if it counts if the person that drugs are being distributed to had asked the accused distributor for them. And now knowing that they acquitted him on the charge of racketeering, of which the prosecution tried to introduce drug distribution as one of the crimes of the enterprise, shows you what the jury's mindset was. That basically you had at least one juror in the room trying to show that that Cassie and Jane willingly took drugs that Combs and his staff procured. And I think that, it just really indicates that basically there was not a nuanced understanding of coercion within the jury. And even those jurors who maybe were not, maybe were in the middle or leaning towards, it seems as if, Combs's victims were maybe not totally consenting here, that they were not convinced enough to fight the jurors who fully believed that Cassie and Jane were not being coerced, that the jurors who were on the fence were not convinced enough of the coercion at play. They had a Diddy stand on the bench. They admitted early one juror refused to negotiate. Yeah, one of the jurors was dismissed from the case, and he was afterwards when he talked to the media, he was very clearly a Diddy stan.
In traumatic moments of her life, things that she may have wanted to go to the grave with had it not been for testifying in this trial. How difficult was that for her, or was it cathartic in some sense?
I think it was both. It was both. It was very difficult, and it was cathartic. If you were in the courtroom and you observed her. I mean, she just answered the questions, I thought, in a very graceful and I think.
And the other, like, I can't, sorry, I know I keep saying this, but even the terms racketeering and trafficking, because of how, like, who the media loves to focus in on when talking about trafficking, when talking about, you know, things like racketeering, is it calls to mind like Mexican cartel lords. It calls to mind like foreigners being locked in a basement. That, like, racketeering, people think of the mafia. They think of the mob, right? They think of like The Godfather.
I'm trying to speak as objectively as possible, I thought, in a forthright manner. I don't believe that the jury disbelieved her in reaching its conclusion. I think the jury ultimately found that the government hadn't met its burden beyond a reasonable doubt under a very complex and difficult statute. And, you know, when you think of sex trafficking, sometimes, you know, people conjure images of, you know, minors and you know, bringing people in from other countries and things like that, and not this sort of behavior, which technically, you know, could be argued as sex trafficking. But I think that she...
Yes. So this is what we call like cultural baggage. These stereotypes of like who victims of trafficking are, who perpetrators of racketeering are. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say that your average person, so somebody who is sitting on a jury in a case like this, is going to be thinking of what they have seen in movies, what they have seen on TV, what they have seen depicted within media. Like, that's how people form their understandings. People have a very law and order view of the justice system. Yeah, they think law and order is real life.
When she filed the civil complaint, she, you know, knew that a lot of this would become public. She didn't know at the time that the government would investigate it. But as that process and her preparations for trial ensued, you know, she knew that she would be asked some very personal, detailed questions that she was prepared to do. She knew that she had to do it because she was vested in the process, and she put a lot of time and effort into it.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a consideration that she wouldn't do this? When the government began investigating her claims and asked her to testify, did she ever say, I don't want to put myself...
There were a lot of times, yeah, Elizabeth. I mean, I think that there were, it was a roller coaster at times. There were certainly days where she didn't want to testify.
Diddy is a terrible person, but this was toxic on both sides, but more Diddy's fault. Y'all, that right there is an effect of the Johnny Depp case. That is literally the damage that case did in perpetrating this belief that, in all these cases, it was mutual abuse. Yeah, well, you know, this person was bad, but the other person was bad too. Oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. No, not what I meant. Well, then what did you mean? Because you literally said this was toxic on both sides. What else could that possibly mean? Can I just say fuck Emily B. Baker and all those hack law tubers for perpetuating that? Yes, fuck them. Okay.
Fine. You know, and that's natural. I mean, it's a lot that the government was asking of her, and she ultimately did what they wanted her to do. She testified truthfully, but you know, just having to subject yourself to cross-examination, and ultimately, when you're done, have a lawyer say the sorts of things that were said in the closing argument about her. That's not easy for anyone to endure, which is why I hold her in such high esteem.
Now, she has what appears to be a great support system around her. Her husband, Alex Fine, was in that courtroom during her testimony. I cannot imagine what that was like for him to hear about your wife, the mother of your children who you love so deeply, going through these horrific moments of abuse and torment that she spoke about. What was that like for Alex?
Yeah, very hard. I mean, he is her #1 supporter and backer, and he really has helped change her life tremendously. When Cassie was ready to take her own life, obviously, she testified about wanting to just walk into oncoming traffic, and Alex obviously was there to help her. So, having him at her side has been enormously helpful for her and her parents. And she has some great other professional people helping her as well. One of whom was at the trial for the period of time that she testified, and which she's been a really great facilitator. I'm happy to say that she works at Mount Sinai, Savvy, S-A-V-I. It's a great organization that helps victims cope with the sort of abuse that Cassie was coping with.
She spoke about that on the stand. She said that she has been in therapy. Is this something that she ever can fully heal from, or will these 10...
Chatter said the same thing earlier in the stream about Debt First Hurt. Yeah, no, there is still so much the lasting consequences, both legally, societally, here on the internet, off the internet, like, it was so damaging. And the playbook that was effectively used in that case, as we've seen then used in subsequent cases of sexual abuse and domestic violence.
11 years always be part of her life?
I think it'll always be part of her life, unfortunately. I mean, you can heal, but you'll never forget. And she's in a much better place now, obviously, than she was 2 years ago, going through drug rehabilitation and being now as she has really helped in that effort. But the abuse that she suffered, that's something that one doesn't forget. And you watch the video, for instance, which isn't isolated. The video obviously is isolated, but that was not an isolated event. Anyone who goes through that sort of abuse, it's impossible to ever forget it. But hopefully, over time, she'll move on. She has been compensated, and so financially she's in a good position, which certainly helps. But she's not the winner, as the defense lawyer said. It's hard to call somebody a winner who has been physically abused for years and years and years, and who was willing to give up her own life, to call that person a winner.
I mean, based on her testimony, for 10 years of her life or close to it, every week for half the week, she was in a dark hotel room with a strange man that she did not know. Again, according to her testimony, being forced into these sex acts. And as you said, that video from that hotel was not isolated.
Worm, thank you.
The jury
SoCal
and really the
Seedling
world for the
321.
first time heard about the scope of this violence that Cassie said that she endured. We saw photos. We heard her mom, Regina, talk on the stand about how she took photos of her daughter's body with those bruises. It's really it's unimaginable to think about what she went through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think...
It's like... it's so hard sitting here and basically going back over Cassie's testimony and you know, what she endured and then what she talked about on the stand, and knowing that this did not matter to the jury ultimately. Like, ultimately they were not convinced. They were not convinced that Cassie and then also Jane did not have agency in their relationships with Combs. That they saw the text to Combs, they saw Cassie and Jane participating in these sex activities because they wanted to. That they just did not believe them they went, okay, sure, I will obviously cannot deny that Cassie was physically battered by Sean Combs, which we see in this video here. But that does not mean that she did not consent to these other things. Are prosecutors not allowed to explain this shit to the jurors? No, they can't. Like, that's their role. But as I stated in the beginning, I think we're at a point where, like, these juries in sexual violence cases need to be comprised of actual experts, because juries made of regular people just do not have the nuanced understanding of abuse. But yeah, they will bring in professionals to testify about these things. But in this case, there were multiple prosecutorial mishandlings, and namely having the charge of racketeering was seen as an overreach by federal prosecutors, and that the criminal enterprise being the weakest part of the case was something that the jury didn't buy, which then had an effect on them viewing him as guilty of sex trafficking.
I think anyone who hasn't actually endured what she endured, which there aren't many people who have, it would be impossible for me or for you or for anyone for that matter to put yourself, in that place and to sort of think about sort of where she is mentally. But she's a strong person, and it takes a strong person with a lot of courage to do what she did. There aren't many people who would have chosen the path of filing a lawsuit and rejecting an 8-figure settlement that was right in front of her.
Yeah, and now, meanwhile, Chris Brown is giving a concert in Glasgow, and fans are arriving en masse and saying that they don't care about him being an abuser because they just love his music so much, and that's all that matters. That's it. That's it.
Just for the greater good. And, history, I think,
they
will
love
show,
a bad boy.
When we look back at this, history will be kind to Cassie Ventura, rightfully so, because of what she did for the many people who have now come out with allegations against Sean Combs.
Yeah,
for
Carlos, I've
holding
seen
him
it.
responsible
It's so fucking gross.
and now making him a 2-time felon of federal crimes. She should be applauded.
Mm-hmm. And this investigation did not begin until she filed her suit. Now we know that she cooperated with authorities in handing over evidence that she had. We know that from the trial. Right. Is it safe to say that none of this would have ever happened without your client?
I mean, from what I know, I think it's safe to say. Obviously, I'm not privy to what the government was looking at, if anything, prior to November of 2023. But it seems logical that she did prompt this. But it's entirely possible as well that they had an eye on him. Let's not forget, there were so many other people in this orbit. He had been prosecuted by the Manhattan DA's office before. And so it's possible.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, not the outcome that you were necessarily hoping for. But for Sean Combs to be even in a courtroom on trial for someone at his stature is extraordinary. Now to be convicted on 2 charges, he may not be serving life in prison, but he will still serve time on 2 very serious federal charges. Sean Combs will never be the same. Right. He will never be the Diddy or the Puff that everybody knew. Even if the jury did not convict him on the most serious charges, you believe that they believed Cassie's story. Do you think that he can
If you believed Cassie's story, then why did you acquit him?
Operate in this world how he did, that he'll be a superstar, that he'll be having these parties? And I'm talking...
Bro, what are we even talking about, man? Like, will Sean Combs be at the height of what he was? I don't think so. I fucking hope he's not. But it's like Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed like 13 women, okay? And then he turned around and retaliated against women that he had harassed and got them fired. And the Democratic Party was like, yeah, we're supporting this guy still. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Like, you look at the way that people have been trying to acquit Harvey Weinstein in the court of public opinion, namely Candace Owens. You look at how, like, gleeful people are to shit on women, to allow powerful men to do whatever the fuck they want to do. So until we really shift our mindset, like how public opinion needs to change regarding our view of abusers and victims of abuse, then perpetrators of abuse and those who enable them will continue to do so. I just brought Chris Brown up. He's as popular as ever. People are paying $1,200 for fan photos with him doing like sexual poses.
About after he serves this time, or do you believe that based on the courage of your client coming forward that things will never be the same?
I don't think things will ever be the same. Of course, there are Sean Combs supporters who have supported him from the beginning of this trial to the end, and they will continue to support him, I'm sure. But I don't think that he's going to go on.
Like I said, I hope he is buried for the rest of his life. In civil lawsuits. That he just can't even take a breath because he is buried under dozens of suits.
This sort of business world as this sort of megastar that he once was. The bottom line is that the facts are the facts. And there were a lot of facts that came out at this trial that were not even controverted. Some of which the defense were very clear to say this case is not about domestic violence. We own that.
It was actually their defense. Their defense was, you probably won't think he's a good guy. He's done indefensible things.
Yeah. And so to be someone who engages in domestic violence at their own admission, I think appropriately so, is not someone that our society should be embracing.
And Combs, when the verdict was read shortly after, he was being ushered out by the marshals because he is, of course, being held in custody. He knelt down. It seemed like he was praying. His defense was crying. Yes, they evaded the most serious charges, but do you believe that they should be taking a victory lap right now?
For the reasons of what I just said about him engaging in this, pattern of violence, which was not controverted, which was actually they indicated it was true. I think victory laps are inappropriate, frankly. There are no winners and losers. at all, regardless of the outcome of this trial. It's a really sad statement about what transpired, whether he was guilty or not guilty. Putting that aside, the things that came out at this trial are really deeply troubling. And I hope he does get the right help, that he is somehow able to be clean and sober and turns over a new leaf. But I think the clearest indication that is not going to happen is that when he was under investigation, he knew he was under investigation, he continued, according to Jane's testimony, in the same types of behaviors. And this is while he was, under investigation by the federal government. Now that he has been acquitted of sex trafficking and RICO violations after he serves his time on the charges which he was convicted for, it's hard for me to believe that he'll be a new man. But I hope for his sake, and for his family's sake, more importantly, frankly, that he does.
Final question. I'm sure Cassie is processing this all right now. This just happened today, less than a few hours ago. Is she proud of herself for doing this?
She is, and I spoke to her right after the verdict, and then I spoke with her with some of the government prosecutors, and she was thanking them. They were thanking her. She's in a good place. People shouldn't be concerned about Cassie. She has a loving family. She has beautiful children. She settled her civil cases. She did what she was asked to do. She's moving on with her life, and I think it'll be a beautiful life with her family and being a mother and a great wife.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you so much, Doug.
Okay, no problem.
Kid Cudi is also getting a lot of hatred today. I mean, people were calling him a snitch. When he testified, they were calling him a snitch. I know. Oh, for fuck's sake. We just have to burn the system down. We do. It is a system that was built to punish poor people and to protect the wealthy, to enable abusers and punish survivors. But I would say also what I say all the time with this, I truly believe that change begins with the people, with the masses, where we can't rely on the legal system changing to meet the times. That the progress needs to come from changes in society. That that chatter earlier who said that they talked with somebody at work about this and it was just one person, but that was one person. This comes with us as individuals taking this responsibility and then, changing the masses. Women are still in the eyes of society and the system seen as property. Sexual violence and abuse has always been about power, not desire. Systems built on power imbalances, patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism. It will always resist seeing women, especially marginalized women, as fully human. It's heartbreaking. Yeah, it's about power. And we have to take that power away and give it to ourselves. And anyway, there is no thought nor positivity going through my mind. I feel pretty exhausted. I'm going to be so for real. I feel exhausted and I frequently feel like I'm screaming into the void. And I don't feel like I often feel very alone in the work that I do. It feels very isolating. As a French, do not look at how our legal system treats women. Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, France has their fair share of issues, and most people don't have an audience. No, I mean it more as like a leftist content creator, where the things that I cover, I feel just I'm coming up against a massive reactionary front. There are just so many people, so many right-wing brained people who this is the type of stuff that they sink their teeth into, that they use to try and shift us as a society towards a very conservative, very oppressive world. And then having people on the left like just kind of dismiss this stuff as well because there's more important stuff going on. I know, but your activism does help open people's minds at least some of the time, and we're happy to have you doing what you do. No, listen, I'm very grateful for this community, and I know there's a lot of you in here, obviously, who care. Anyway, I'm going on Taylor's podcast tomorrow with Kat Tenbarge to talk all about this. So the three of us will dive into it. We will dive into it and talk about the broader issue of this kind of news being framed as celebrity news and how people are not understanding how politics are formed via pop culture news stories. So anyway, you've taught me so much, seriously. Well, that's good. I'm glad about that. Champagne Cyclist, thank you for the gifted. Let me see how okay, call it in 5 minutes. All right, you guys, sorry. I know this has just been a very downer beginning to the stream, but I am going to flip gears. I'm going to flip gears because I'm going to go shoot some stuff. I mean, I'm still streaming, but yeah, I'm going to go shoot things and have an emotional release through shooting things. I think Will is almost ready. So no, not drugs. No, gosh. Oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Great balls of fire. There's a lot more of us globally too. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. There are a lot of people who care. No, I recognize when I say, man, I feel so alone, it's more so in like the content creator space, even amongst leftist creators. I'm glad to be a voice that people trust and that they know with these kinds of things that I will offer thoughtful commentary, but sometimes it just does feel like the burden is always on the people who are most affected, right? It's like how I feel. I try and speak out a lot for LGBTQ rights, for the trans community, because I know that exhaustion of being like, man, why do I have to fight for my own freedom? And anyway, in lighter news, do you think Miss Club paid for Timmy to get a star in the Walk of Fame? I think Miss Club is going to show up. I think Miss CC is going to show up for Timmy's Walk of Fame. I really appreciate you, even though I wasn't here for most of the coverage because of personal stuff that is triggered by a case like this. It makes you feel alone, but that's why we fight. Yeah. You know, the truth is like sexual violence is so endemic to our society. And if you are not a victim of it, just know that a lot of people in your life likely are. And it is something that a lot of us share these common bonds of trauma and pain, and it can feel so consuming, which is why, you know, it's always good to be able to put that energy somewhere. William Nefferson, you're muted.
Caroline, I know. I was talking to my audience.
Oh, well, you've been muted before when we were playing Night Rain, so I didn't know.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Wow, that's pretty smug.
Pretty smug?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I'm feeling pretty smug today.
Why are you feeling smug today?
No, I'm not feeling smug today. But anyway.
Do it, lady.
No, sir. No.
Do it, lady.
No, sir. Let's get things going.
Do you know that
here.
expression?
Do it, lady?
Do it, lady.
What is that from?
I don't know. It's just an expression that people say.
Wait. I thought
Look
you
at
were
chat.
like, this is
They're
a
all-
pop.
No,
Did
they're
you
all-
just
look-
make
look
that
at
up?
chat. No, I didn't just make that up. There's so many people that say it. They go, do it, lady.
I have never heard that before.
She doesn't know. That's crazy.
I don't know.
Congratulations to our hot sauce winners. Nick, Auto, Physio316, Easy. Go to nefsauce.com/redeem to get your free sauce. And do it, lady. All right.
Are you sure you're not just making things up?
No, look at chat right now. I bet your chat is all doing do it, ladies, right now.
Yeah, they are, but they're also, you know.
With the little slay emote.
I'm seeing a lot of Will Wide as well. Completely made up.
No, it's not. It's the whole thing.
Someone said I'm gay as hell, and I have never heard that. You know what, Will? That's okay, because you might have you know, you're an influencer. You're an influencer, so.
Well, tonight we're gonna do it, lady.
We are
do it, lady.
We
with
are
Mecha
gonna
Break.
do it, lady. That's
Right, and it released on July 1st at 9 p.m. It's a third-person mecha shooter, and it's a free-to-play mecha shooter that delivers high-octane, high-speed action across multiple game modes, including 6v6 hero shooter, 3v3 deathmatch, and Mash Mac. Mecha Break's unique take on the extraction genre. Choose from 15 distinct mechs, strikers, each with unique playstyles like brawler, sniper, and support. Which one do you think you'll play, Caroline?
whatever one I get the biggest
Customize
gun.
your active space station hub and dive into dynamic large scales battles following major upgrades since the February open beta. Mecha Break now offers a deeper, more refined experience, and there are Twitch drops available right now. We're going to be getting into it, and we're going to do it, lady.
We're gonna do it, lady. That's right. Thank you, Will, for kicking things off. Would you mind so terribly if I use the bathroom before we get to a shooting?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll talk to my chat for a little bit.
Yeah,
Go to the bathroom.
talk to my chat too. Don't mute yourself. Talk to my chat. Champagne Cyclist, thank you for another gifted sub. Okay, wait. Let me open up.
Okay, I can't help but notice you're
No,
not
I'm going to the bathroom now.
going to the bathroom.